Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to our show. We have gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the multiverse, two of the nerdiest geeks to be found. We proudly present the professor and her geeky girlness herself, Ace. And now it's time. GeekyKOOL presents Professor and Ace.
Hey everybody, welcome to GeekyKOOL presents Professor and Ace, Season 2, Episode 9. We're back after a hiatus for life getting in the way, is really what it was.
Well, that was some technical difficulty. Yep, we're back after a while. We have had some family medical things go on, and You've been sick this last week.
Yep.
So,
all sorts of funness. But we're back.
Yay.
Just like Arnold would say, what back? So talking about Arnold.
Did you see there's that documentary about his life? I haven't watched it yet. But
I have not watched it either. I did see that.
There's a new
interesting watch.
I'm like, I don't know. But, I love a good documentary, so I'll probably end up watching it at one point or another.
So I did watch the Stan Lee documentary recently.
It's on my list. It's on my list for this weekend.
It was an interesting thing. I did see that Jack Kirby's son commented about it and basically stated that he felt like that his father didn't get his due in the documentary. I'm like, well, your dad needs a documentary about his life, not about Stan Lee's life. And I know they intersect a lot, and they talk a little bit about that, and they talk very positively about Jack.
Right.
They do highlight the bit of conflict that Stan and Jack had in the late 80s about who really created what and all that. But they did, I mean, it was just a brief thing about that. But overall, it was a positive thing about Jack along with being about Stan.
Yeah, and they were both, let's face it, they are both iconic.
Yes.
And they both created, you can have arguments over who created what, but the team that they were that created that and the whole thing was amazing. And so I agree. I think that he shouldn't be complaining about Stan Lee's documentary not talking about his dad enough. He should be going out to some filmmakers, independent filmmakers, and get a documentary about his dad's life, because I'd watch that too.
I would too, because it would be fascinating. No, I think that's what needs to happen. But it was fascinating just because I watched it in a bit of a puff piece, to be honest. And it wasn't anything hard hitting, but it's a documentary about somebody who's an icon who passed away. And it's not like he was controversial, other than taking credit for creating a bunch of characters that he co-created.
Right. And that's not as controversial as, like, there was no private life controversy. It's kind of anytime you have creative people working together and stuff, like, you and I have talked about this. Somebody's going to help other people out and they're not going to get credit for it. And then, but it's kind of that balance. You have to try to make that balance work. And so I don't blame, he could have done it on purpose. It could have just been like, he was a well-known person. Like, we never know. And a lot of the times I work for media, and I'm not saying this for, your area local newspapers, because I know I'm one of these people who report what we know is going on. But, some of these big media, they like that drama. So
they certainly do. They like the controversy. Controversy sells papers. Or
it does. I know.
Commercials or whatever.
I'm just terrible about, like, trying to find it. I just rather find those good stories.
So here's something when you watch the Stan Lee documentary, you'll hear it, and it just made my heart just happy. Stan was talking about his wife, and they're taking interviews that he'd done prior, and so he was talking about his wife and how he met her and fell in love with her instantly, and how he was actually being set up with another girl, and he walked in, and she it was at, like, this hat department at the store that he had friends at, and so he was supposed to go in and talk to this hat model, and she was the head of that department. And when he met her, he instantly fell in love with her and started wooing her.
Aww.
And he basically said that she was always the life of the party, and he would do anything for her. And they always lived kind of right in the cusp of what money they could make, because he always wanted to give her whatever she wanted because he just cared about her so much. And she was kind of the essential party girl. So he actually designed Mary Jane Watson after his wife.
I was gonna say it sounds like Mary Jane. Like
Yep. So Mary Jane's based off of Stan's wife.
And now we know the real reason why he killed off Gwen Stacy.
Actually, he didn't kill her off.
I know.
It was a different writer. He was shocked by it, but yeah. So, anyway.
Oh my goodness! But as we were saying, like you said, we're back.
We're back,
and I'll be back, kind of thing. And we talked about Arnold, and that movie didn't make our list. I'm looking at our list.
Well, yeah. Well, in the list is supposed to be kind of those cult classics. So,
right.
Terminator probably had too much success.
I was thinking more along the lines of the movie before, the Conan the Barbarian movie.
Conan the Barbarian. It was kind of a big successful movie too, though. I actually considered it. Now, 2 was not. I agree. 2 was not. I considered Conan the Barbarian. But I think it did too well in the theaters for.
Yeah, but it's very cult classic.
Okay.
And now I would think it's more cult classic now than it was, because
I agree with that. Yes.
It has not aged well.
Has not.
And
I was just actually trying to go and find that the other day to watch.
Yeah.
Funny.
There's a movie that I didn't put on my list that is all along the lines of some of those kind of movies, and I might talk about it.
Well, we can put it on the list and find a picture out there somewhere on it. So we did create lists, and we just kind of shotgunned some of these in here. So, but we did create a list of movies, and I thought of this because I thought we just had Father's Day, and one of the great things that a lot of dads like are kind of those cult classic movies that people enjoy, and cult classic sci-fi and fantasy from the 80s, which is kind of our sweet spot anyway. Yeah, exactly. So we threw some movies together to kind of talk about some of our favorites here. So we'll just not necessarily in order, but we'll just throw some out and talk about them. So what's the first one you want to start with, Ace?
I want you to pick first. You pick.
Okay. Well, I will pick first. Boy, that's hard to pick first. We're going to go with this one. I love this movie. They've talked about even making a series out of this. It's The Last Starfighter.
Okay, it almost made my list. So when I was making my list, I was thinking which ones are going to definitely be on Professor's list. And this one I knew this was going to be on your list. Such a great movie, and
it is.
It's one of those movies that I think people forget.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, I don't know that movie, or oh my gosh, I remember that movie, and that I don't know. It's one of those that I could watch over and over again. I haven't seen it for a long time, and now that it's on the list, I really want to see it again.
Yeah, when you can go and win at a video game and get recruited into a starfighting academy,
right?
Not on purpose. The alien kind of comes and kidnaps them. It's a very fun take on that whole idea that you're going to prove yourself here. And that was done by accident, and because he went to go back home, and because of that, he actually was the only starfighter that was saved, and he had to save the world, save the universe. Yeah, I love it. This movie's just great. It's a ton of fun. Plus, it takes place in a trailer park, and having grown up in a trailer when I was much younger, I kind of related and went, "Oh wow! See, even the trailer park kid gets a chance to be the hero." So
exactly.
I love that. I love the teenagers at the time. Of course, it's all true 80s, and the clone of his who, when his girlfriend sticks her tongue in his ear, it causes him to malfunction.
Oh my God. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's just it's classic.
So what I love about it is how, back then you're thinking, oh, well, they would never be able to train like pilots and starfighters and stuff with video games. But if you look at what they use now to train, like it is basically simulation video games. So it was really ahead of its time, in a way, because that's kind of what they do now.
Well, in fact, a lot of it's even done with doing basically a video game to fly the planes now, with all the remote controls of the drones and stuff like that. So it is. It's kind of funny how that was considered to be kind of just goofy at the time, but then it's become kind of the reality of now. So.
Exactly. And how many kids like really wanted to get discovered playing video games?
No doubt. Long before esports or any of that were to come around, playing video games, you just go waste your quarters at the arcade.
Oh, yeah. And you were considered a slacker. You were considered a nerd, a geek, a slacker. You're wasting your life playing video games. Now people make money playing video games. But back then, this was the dream.
we had no Twitch to be able to stream what we were doing on the video game.
Oh, no.
All right. So that's the first one on our list. What do you got for us?
So we're gonna continue kind of on this kind of aspect of like these kids who are not necessarily rich and everything, and them getting to go do something really cool, the explorers.
Yep.
Debut movie for Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix. If you haven't seen it, this is not a great quality picture, but it is hilarious. So it's these kids who literally build a space shuttle. Shuttle. I say shuttle, but it's not really a shuttle. But to travel in space, because they're the ones having dreams that he needs to be doing this, and his friends are like, "We can do this," and they go and they meet up with aliens. It is such a fun movie, and River Phoenix, Ethan Hawke, just the careers that they had in River before he passed away. This movie really launched a lot of young careers.
Right.
Amanda Peterson, who is best known, I think, for Can't Buy Me Love.
Right. Yes.
She was the love interest or the crush in it. But I remember watching this and thinking, oh my God, that's so cool. Like these kids are just figuring out how to build a spaceship. Can we do that? I really tried.
Exactly, right? Yeah, I'm with you.
Like I want to get like a tilt-a-whirl and build a spaceship and just, it just looked fun. And it was such a fun show. And it didn't hurt that there were cute boys in it. And I was, sure. It came out when I was like, 9. So you have a little bit older boys in it. And I'm like, oh, cute boys.
Exactly.
But no, I really liked it. It's one of those shows that I had my kids watch growing up. It and then like Flight of the Navigator, which we don't have on our list either, kind of fits into that kind of same category as these last 2 movies we talked about, where normal kids get to go explore space and save the universe or meet 8 extraterrestrials and go on these crazy adventures, and they're kids. So I like it.
Right on. Yeah, it's a fun little movie. It probably didn't have the impact for me as it did for you, just because I was a little older. But but it's fun. So, all right. Well, I'm going to go with a dark fantasy, a story set on a far-off world with creatures we've never seen before, but they're all Muppets. So
I love the Muppets. I'm just
me too. But the Dark Crystal, I love this freaking movie. It's so weird. It's just
the world building in this movie. The world building.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
I love, one of mine has, some Muppets in it.
Yep.
But it's a thing that I think kids now are so used to CGI.
Right.
They're not used to like that whole actual, we've got people up here doing this and pulling this and making it do this. And that movie, The Dark Crystal, was one of those movies that when you watched it, you forget that they're Muppets.
You certainly do. You
forget that they're creatures that are puppeted by people. Right. And, they made the series. Netflix made a series of it. But it's because of the world building on that story is so intense and can go back. And it's kind of like when we always talk about, Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or any of these like big world building kind of movies or kind of books and stuff, and how you can tell more stories that don't even know. It's Mandalorian is a great spin-off of Star Wars, and it wasn't in the original anything, except for Boba Fett, and very few Mandalorians were in it.
Right.
But they've built and they've told stories, and this one had so much history that they provided in this kids movie.
Very dark kids movie, fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't see movies like this especially geared towards kids nowadays at all. It was very different from what people were expecting.
Oh yeah.
But man, the storytelling in it and the bad guys, I forget what their names are, but oh my gosh,
I actually had a little bit of they scared me a little.
Right. They were scary. Yeah.
I'm like, no. But it's one of those movies, it was done so well, and the story is so intentional in everything that they put on film.
It is. Yes.
That it has held up. We talked about, there's certain movies, and some of these movies that we're going to talk about we love, but they do not hold up well.
True.
Dark Crystal holds up well.
Yeah.
And it because it's timeless, and because it's creatures, and there's not people, and there's no thing that says, oh, this was made in the 80s. There's this, because it's this made up world.
Right.
I think it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite puppeted.
Right. Jim Henson movies.
Ever.
Yeah.
And that includes one of the ones on my list too. So.
Yeah, it's a tremendous story. I go back to that every so often because I'm like, man, sometimes it's the weird and crazy that it just draws me in, and I'm just intrigued by it.
That's why he likes me.
Yeah. Why you put up with me too? So anyway, but so that one's mine. So Dark Crystal. All right, what do you got?
Well, we're gonna be following kind of the same pattern kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna do some puppets of mine.
Well, you remind me of a babe.
What babe?
Babe with the power.
What power?
The power of voodoo.
Hoodoo?
You do.
Do what?
Remind me of a babe.
Anytime you have a girl be the main hero of a show back then. One, she's cute. She's a bookworm, which I totally was. You have David Bowie, who I adored, singing and being this bad guy, but not quite bad guy, but bad guy if still the same. You have magic. You have puppets. You have danger and Bluto. You have Bluto.
You do.
You just can't beat that combination. And
I
The Labyrinth
agree.
is one of those movies that I watch almost every year. I watch it at least once a year. I will say, I don't know what they're called, the ones that throw their heads.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that freaked me out, and it's one of those that freaked me out. So,
Yep.
so you know, it's David freaking Bowie. Yes, Jason, it's David
True
Bowie,
that, Jason.
and
It's
you
me.
know he's evil, but he's not, and he is, and you don't know if you should hate him or love him or be confused by him, which is perfect David Bowie.
Boy, that is true, right?
It's true. But no, it's I just love that movie so much, and I will admit that I kind of fast forward through the head throwing still
I
because they still
understand.
freak me out. But just the kind of puzzles that she has to go through, and
Yes.
it really felt like it was about when I watched it the first time was about the time I started playing D&D.
Yeah.
And so it felt like this girl was on a D&D quest all by herself.
You are exactly right. Yes, I agree.
So I just completely love that. So
Yeah, it's a great movie. I love that movie. It was also on my list there. And Jennifer Connelly. Oh,
yeah, she grew up to be gorgeous.
she did. She did. Yep.
Can't beat her.
All right.
What do you got next?
Well, let's see. What do we want to do next? Okay, let's go for something a little different, and I'm going to break the curse barrier here for you because I'm here to kick some ass and chew some bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum.
Okay. First of all, I'm a wrestling like nerd. I watch WWE Network, like old stuff constantly.
Yep.
Rowdy Piper. Just he's not the best actor, but he's
No,
Rowdy Piper.
exactly.
And this movie, it's like it's up there with The Stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of horror, kind of sci-fi, kind of you don't know if you should be scared or not. And he's just quirky and fun in it.
He is. He's got one-liners like Arnold.
Yes.
You talk about world building. This thing really does build world here. That's really an interesting world where aliens have taken over, and without those glasses, everybody looks normal. But you take off the glasses, or you put on the glasses, and then
they're
you
like
see
these
the aliens and the signs, and the heads are cool. Yeah. I remember seeing this in the theater. I remember we went to see this just kind of on a whim. I think I was on a date, and we were in Joplin, Missouri, and just like, oh, what should we see? This is a good time. And I loved it. I just absolutely loved it.
It's amazing. It was on my list, and then we have had this discussion about this movie before, and I knew it was going to be on your list, so I took it off mine because I knew it was going to be on yours. So I loved the miniseries V.
Yeah, me too.
And this kind of reminded me of that, but in a very tongue-in-cheek comedy. Yep. Like it's comedy, but it's also a little scary.
It's action, comedy, horror.
Yes, and it's like, but again, Rowdy Piper, and I just loved that man. And not a great actor, but you know what you're getting into with him, and
right.
And this, he very much has that. It does remind me of like the Terminator, like like that.
Most definitely
come in and but no, it's a great pick. I love that pick.
Yeah, definitely a cult classic, and
oh yeah.
In fact, when a very popular video game steals his famous line, and people are like, oh, that's from that video game. Yeah, but before it was from They Live. So.
Yes. It's on the line of the stuff which I almost put on my list, but we've talked about it before. So, and I did a whole review of it on GeekyKOOL, so I didn't put it on my list, but it is in that line of that horror comedy. You're not sure if you should be scared or laughing.
Which I think the 80s did very well in kind of blending, and the humor kind of keeps the horror at bay enough to where you're like, okay, it's not just straight comedy, and it's not like stupid.
Right.
It's one of those where you're like, you can be a little frightened, but the comedy helps take some of the edge out.
But it touches base on, like, stuff touches base on consumerism giving you something that's dangerous.
Very much so.
And this touches base on an innate fear of a lot of people, is that we are not alone and that they're already here and they're going to destroy us.
Well, and it also hits on the consumerism, and you basically buy more, reproduce, sit on your couch. So all that's in there.
And it did that, but it added that tongue-in-cheek comedy from, like, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes or that kind of thing. But it did it with something that is actually fear of a lot of people, which made it a little scarier. And it was really good. If you guys haven't watched it, it's definitely worth a watch.
It probably has not aged as well as what we remember, but
I watched it so long ago. I watched it like last year.
Okay, all right.
And technology in it has not aged. Like, you can tell it was made in the 80s. It's like RoboCop. Okay, so you watch RoboCop, you kind of have to take away everything that's what they say is technologically advanced, because now we're so far advanced. But if you take that away and just play with the storyline of it where it goes, it holds up pretty well. Not great, but pretty well.
You could see a series or a sequel to this being done or something. Don't remake it. There's no need to remake it, but take that world and do something with it. That would be really cool. Right.
Yeah. Build it out. That would be cool. I like that. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. So where am I going to go? I'm going to go. Another one that built a world that I really, really appreciated was Solar Babies. Dystopian world. Water is at a premium. The rich have kind of dammed it off, and they don't allow people to have it. Kids are sent into, it's like Mad Max meets roller skating.
Mad Max meets roller derby.
Yeah. It's really, really crazy. It invented a game. Again, it's one of those that I just think is, I watched it last year.
Mm-hmm.
It actually didn't age badly because it's dystopia, so you don't have like that technology and stuff. But it's fun. It was a fun show. I remember my sister and I, it was one of the only shows that we agreed on, other than like Dirty Dancing. But it was just kind of like you were rooting for these kids to make a change in the world. And I think at the time, it was one of those things that it came out in 1986. So we, as children growing up at this point, whether you're preteen as I was, or a teenager in 86, there was a big fear of what the world was going to look like.
Yeah, exactly.
And what could we do? We're just kids.
Right.
And this kind of gave us that a little bit of a hope that kids can make a change. And even the smallest kid, what's his name? Lucas, the little boy in the middle there. He's deaf in the show, and he's the one who really makes a difference. And so I always like that, where your unexpected person becomes the biggest hero, and leads people. And I just thought that was great, because Lucas was closer to my age, at the point that this was out. And plus, it had good looking kids.
Yes.
I mean, Jamie Gertz,
yeah.
She's pretty. A lot of people remember from Lost Boys.
Right.
And I feel like this movie is one that when I mention it to people, they either know it and they're like, oh my God, I forgot about that movie. I love that movie. Or they're like, I don't even know what that movie is.
Right.
So you either love it or you don't know what it is. But I just think that it gave kids hope that they could change the world.
Right.
Without being too preachy about it or being too, I don't know, educational about it. So
no after school special.
No after school specials. Yeah, no. The more you know. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Well, I completely know. I know this on a very special after school special.
Listen, if you were born in the 90s or later, look up The More You Know.
and look up after school specials.
Yeah, because that was the time when we had special times on our TV. The TV stations had special times to engage children. Early mornings, children. Saturday mornings, children. That 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock hour, kids. Right. Not little ones, but usually Becky's in trouble because she lied. How is she going to get out of it kind of thing. Moral stories.
The moral stories.
This wasn't in your face moral story. It was a hero's journey, but in a dystopian world and in an unexpected hero. You expect it's going to be one of the older kids. So, sorry, my son was texting me.
Oh, that's funny.
But he's
that cracks me up.
His initials are DAF. DAF.
Well, there you go.
His dad was Donald. It's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah.
So what's your next one, Professor?
Well, let's go with something kind of out there. And of course, it's a cult classic. So a lot of them are going to be out there. But something that was meant to be tongue-in-cheek, that was not meant to be the top sci-fi of the day. It was a throwback intentionally, and people completely missed it. But also, one of the movies with the best soundtracks.
Right.
Talking about Flash.
Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon.
Okay, so this is literally one of those movies that was meant to be kind of trying to be what the hero movies in the 50s were, but in the 80s.
Well, and actually, it tries to throw back to the the serials of the 30s and the 40s. Is really what it's trying to throw back to. And of course, it's based on a character that ran in the comic strips in the 20s and 30s. So
yeah, but the stylizing and the costumes and stuff are very much like Batman from the TV series
from the 60s, right,
which I like. I mean, and just look at this. If you just look at this, the time it took somebody to build these props and how cool they are for what they were.
Right.
I love this. This is amazing. I love Binge Society at the top. I'm I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I just pulled off the pictures.
I 1980.
So the first time I saw it, I thought maybe it was going to be like a Star Wars thing. So I was like, I don't get it. But then once I realized more what it was, and also the soundtrack, again, is just absolutely amazing. But you got Queen doing the whole freaking soundtrack. And Freddie Mercury, baby. So
Queen is my favorite band.
I know. We agree on Queen being amazing. So they're my top 5. So
yeah.
So yeah. I just love this movie. This is so much fun. I wanted a picture of the Hawk guy. I can't remember his name. I love the wings are just hysterical. So I'm like, oh man, I love that.
But you know what I love about this picture that you pulled up is like, that is that 80s romance novel kind of guy.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
windswept hair, not quite long hair yet. It wasn't the fabulous.
Right, because this is very early 80s.
Yes, but it gets you there. You can see the transition from him in the sunset, the sky behind him and everything. You could totally turn this picture in, like, instead of having him holding the machine, you put him holding a girl, and it's a romance novel cover.
You're exactly right.
I love that.
No, so cool. This is just this picture pretty much says it all. You know, you got the kind of cheesy special effects. You've got the very old-looking technology for futuristic technology that's right there. I just loved it. I think that's Flash Gordon, ton of fun.
Yeah, it's a thing that does not take itself too seriously, and it doesn't want you to take it serious. It is not a serious thing. So I love things like that, because a lot of the times shows, movies, they're not good, but they think they are. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're written like, we're going to be an Academy Award winner. No, you're not. But just be what you are. And this is one of those movies that just, you knew going in, it was going to be what it was. Right. Which was a cheese factory of a movie, but still one that you kind of want to watch over and over again. So
it is. It definitely is. Yeah. You're like, oh, Flash Gordon's on. I gotta watch this. This is just fun. So yeah, it's one of those it's just for fun sort of movies. So yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Good pick.
Thanks.
Good pick, Professor.
Well, I figured if you're going cult classic, Flash Gordon's got to be on there.
Yes, he does. So my next one is one that basically kind of has the same thing, to where it didn't actually take itself too serious. It's the one I just added, because it was building on that whole Beastmaster, which was on my list that I thought you were going to add, but you didn't. So Beastmaster is there. Is it on there?
Well, maybe I thought it was.
It's not on there. Okay, I thought for sure you were going to add it, because I love Beastmaster.
I knew you did, and I had it on my list, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's fine. So Beastmaster, that whole Conan the Barbarian. I love fantasy. I love sword fights. I love, saving the world or saving the kingdom from an evil sorcerer or any of that. And this one, for my 40th birthday, the thing I told everybody, and this was, several years ago, I had an 80s movie birthday party where everybody dressed as an 80s movie character. And people were like, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, I want somebody to find this movie for me. And my friend Trent, his brother Jason, found this movie for me. So I have it on DVD. And it's called The Barbarian Brothers.
Yep. You lent it to me, so I've seen it now.
It's hilarious.
It is.
It is. They're raised by gypsies. They have to save the gypsies. They have all this armor. They're like these big bulky guys. They are hilarious. And they don't take themselves seriously. So they're like a Conan the Barbarian. If Conan the Barbarian was stupid.
Right.
Really stupid. But he knew he was stupid, and he was just but I'm big and I'm a barbarian and I can fight. That's what this movie is. And it's not a long movie. It's a very short movie, but it is so funny. I laughed so hard. And I didn't realize, it's one of those movies I watched as a kid and then you never found it again. And then when Jason got it for me for my 40th birthday, I watched it and I was like, it's never going to be as good as I thought it was. And it's actually better, because I understand some of the more adult humor in it now than I did when I was a kid. There's not like a lot. There's no bad scenes. There's none of that. But like they're kind of naive guys, and the girl in it, Kira, is not a naive girl. Like she's seen the world and knows more, and so it's just this weird. Instead of the guys making the advances, she says stuff and they don't know what she's talking about. And I just love that movie. And yeah, I lend it to everyone. I don't even know if I have it at my house right now. I think somebody has it.
No, I don't have it. I gave it back. But I did want it. Yeah.
But it's one of those.
It's a lot of fun. It's very.
It literally just does not take itself serious at all.
Not at all. Not at all. I did add Beastmaster for you, by the way. So.
All right.
Well, I knew the picture. I even downloaded for it, so I don't know why.
So we'll put that. Okay. Mark Singer, Beastmaster. Yeah. He gets to talk to animals. He has ferrets, and he has an eagle, and he gets to save people.
A panther,
yeah. The panther is amazing, and it's very Conan the Barbarian. If Conan the Barbarian actually, instead of meeting up with people and taking over, all he had was animals and a kid. So,
right. Yes.
So,
what did you think of the second one, by the way?
I thought it was, again, tongue-in-cheek. I don't like when they bring, because they brought him into our world. Yes. I don't like that.
I don't either.
Like that. I felt like they were trying to force a Crocodile Dundee thing onto it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, bringing that character who's, like, masculine and super tough into our modern world. And it worked for Crocodile Dundee because he lived in the modern world. He just lived in the outback.
Right,
so he understood things. I don't like it when they do that. I feel like it crosses dimensions in a way that I don't like, because I want my fantasy worlds to stay in my fantasy world. And if they do bring it over, then do it better. Do it in a better way. Have a better story to tell.
Right.
It's kind of like Masters of the Universe. I love
exactly.
But the 1980s movie with Courtney Cox, and they tried to bring He-Man and Skeletor to our world. It did not work.
Not at all.
You leave them in their world. If you want somebody from our world, you have them go to their world and get trapped.
Right.
But you don't do it in the reverse, because it gets messy, and there's too much of the story that goes into them trying to explain our world to these people that it kind of takes away from the story, in my mind.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, we saw several different movies in the 80s where it just did not work. So no. Mm-hmm. So I feel the same way. Beastmaster is amazing. It's a lot of fun. It's a great movie. The second one, it's okay, but they should have kept it out of our world. So yeah.
Yeah, they should have had her go to the fantasy world.
Right.
And then he would have to try to explain to her the dangers instead of vice versa, because I feel like when you have your main character, your hero character, having to be talked through things.
Yep.
And it kind of hurts, unless it's something like Crocodile Dundee, and that was a one of a kind of story where he was from this world, he knew things, he just he hadn't actually experienced them. So it wasn't from a different world, it was just a different place. He lived in a different place, different culture.
Right.
Bringing it over, you don't have your hero come over and have to be explained how things are going and what this is and what that is, and it just makes it awkward.
Agreed.
In my opinion.
Agreed.
Okay, what's your next one, Professor?
So talking about being a little awkward, I love this movie, but when I rewatched it, it feels like you're trying to cram a couple things in that don't go together. And it tries to cram Star Wars, or a feel of Star Wars, into the fantasy world. And that part just falls flat for me. But still, I have to say I really like Kroll. And the glaive. Even though a glaive is something else. But,
that is just one of the most impressive weapons.
It is.
Like, out of any of the the weapons we're talking about, and we're talking like Star Wars, and we're talking Conan the Barbarian with his sword and stuff. This weapon is, in my mind, one of the best conceived weapons in a movie. It's kind of like Xena's weapon.
Yes.
It's so unique, the chakra.
Blades.
Yeah, it's so unique. Just for this weapon alone, I like this movie.
No, I'm with you. I don't know
if have you watched it. Well,
have you watched it recently?
I watched it, I want to say 4 years ago, and
the whole idea that the threat that's happening because he's getting married to the princess in the beginning, and then all of a sudden, like, this army from space shows up.
Yeah, it's
ships that kind of remind you of Star Wars. You're like, what's going on here? It's a fantasy world.
So I think that we have a comment. Let's see what the comment. Who's comment? Jason. Okay, and that's a good point, and that's literally what I was going with. The arcade game is one thing, because the arcade game, you got to be the hero. You got to be this. I think what happened was they're like looking at the success of certain movies,
right?
Conan the Barbarian type of movies, Star Wars definitely, and they're like, oh wait, what if we like push these two things together and created something,
right?
And then try to also make it some kind of like hero love story weirdness, and
right.
It just, the storyline. We've talked a lot about some of these have like amazing storylines and amazing world building, and this one felt like 3 different writers were trying to write, and it's kind of like playing Dungeons and Dragons, and you don't have a constant DM, and you have like every week you have a different DM and they're doing a different thing and you don't know what you're doing.
Yep.
And that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like, hey, I have an idea. Okay, well, you know what? This is a great time for these kinds of movies, so let's just throw all the ideas out there and see which ones stick.
Right.
It could have used editing in either making it a fantasy film or making it a sci-fi film. And you can successfully make a sci-fi fantasy.
You can.
But this one wasn't there.
No.
Again, I suggest watching this movie just for that weapon. Like, it's a thing.
Well,
I'm a person. This was an amazingly designed weapon. It's one of the coolest weapons in a movie ever.
Agreed. Well, and that's what always made me come back to it. The most disappointing thing in the movie, though, is not even the bad plot and you're mixing in things. It's at the very end, after he goes on the hero's journey to get this weapon, learns how to use it, does all this time preparing with the weapon, throws it at the bad guy, and it doesn't do its job. He has to kill the bad guy with the sword afterwards. You're like, but
this weapon was the story, and they should not have done that. Like,
well, I get that sometimes you're using things like that as your, you're kind of using that to linger you along, and here's the real part of the story. But still, I don't know.
And actually, I knew this trivia. Did you know that? I didn't know from Summer of '69, but I knew they were on TU. I knew she was in some of his videos.
Right. I think I'd heard that before, but I forgot it. So, one of those things where you're like, oh, that sounds familiar. So,
right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Jason. That's cool.
Yes. We love learning new things.
We do.
Okay, let's see, where are we going to go? So, we've gone through some like really obscure ones and ones that some people might not know. Let's see. Trying to figure out which way I want to go. All right, so this one, I hate Tom Cruise. You know I do. But I love some of his movies. I just don't like him as a person.
Right.
But this movie was, and still is, one of my favorite movies, but not because of Tom Cruise, but because of Tim Curry.
Yep. And it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
And you actually make a unicorn look like a unicorn, which is amazing for that time frame.
Yeah, and this is not CGI. This is not CGI, people. This is literally, they did this.
Right.
They glued a horn onto this horse. I don't know if they glued it, but they put it on there. That reminds me of Scrooged.
Yes, exactly. I'm so glad you got that.
Where he's like, how do we put the horns on the reindeer horns on the mouse? Just staple them.
Staple it. Well, good.
Oh my god. The costumes in there, amazing.
Yes.
World building, again, amazing. It kind of has a Midsummer Night's Dream feel to it.
Yes, it does.
And it's got that like beautiful fantasy, and good and evil are very, very understood in it.
Yes, it is.
There's Lily, who you see here with the unicorn, like good, sweet Lily, but when she gets corrupted and she turns into Dark Lily, that is like costuming amazingness. Like the costumes in this alone were phenomenal.
Agreed.
The film, like the scenes and the way it's filmed in that kind of soft focus, misty, kind of mysterious thing that they did with the film and the editing of it, beautiful. But Tim Curry as the demon,
yeah.
I mean, I did not realize it was him when I was little. I was scared to death of that. And then I was watching it with my mom, and my mom goes, that's Rooster from Annie, right? Annie's brother. And I used to love Annie. So I was like, what? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, no. And then I was never scared of him again because it's Tim Curry, and we love Tim Curry. But it shows Tim Curry, I think, is one of those actors that if he's in something, I'm going to watch it because just the beauty of he's a chameleon that is completely underrated a lot, that people are not even aware he is certain characters, and he can play anything.
Yeah, and he gets into character.
Yes.
So well.
And it's not just like the makeup, because the makeup, don't get me wrong, the makeup in this movie is amazing. Phenomenal. The costumes, phenomenal.
Yeah.
But his face has this way, and he has this ability to change his face, and the way he talks, and the way he moves his jaw, and it changes his face completely, and you can get scared of him, and then he'll be like funny as hell in the next movie you see him in.
Right.
But it is still one of my favorite Tom Cruise movies, but it's not because Tom Cruise is in it.
I completely understand. Tom Cruise really, even though he was kind of the headlining star, because he was budding star at that point, really isn't the focal point of that movie at all.
Lily and Tim Curry are, and the unicorns.
Right.
The fairy has more, that, and Tom Cruise is the hero, but it's not your typical hero's journey where it's focused on him. Personally, I always thought Lily was more of the hero. Like I
agree.
Emotionally, she has to go through a lot. But no, but I think it's one of my top fantasy movies, like pure fantasy, unicorns and demons and fairies, like ever made. And
it's great.
Beautiful. Like if you want to see a beautiful movie, this is beautiful. If you love A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare, this has that same feel. Like love it.
I completely agree.
Yay.
Completely agree. It was also on my list there too. Yeah. All right, let's see here. We share several here, but
I figured we were getting close to the sharing.
Well, sure. Sharing is caring, and we can share some. And so let's go with this one. Do you remember Ice Pirates?
I do. I did not remember it until I saw it on your list. And then I'm like, oh my God.
Very kind of tongue-in-cheek.
Oh, yeah.
But also post-apocalyptic, more of a road warrior, but set in space and hauling ice. And of course, I just love that. You got to haul some ice out of here.
Right. Ice is the commodity, right? Ice is
the commodity.
Like in Dune, you have spice and
right.
Ice Pirates.
Ice, baby.
But again, costumes in this are super fun.
Yeah.
No one take them seriously. They don't have a cohesive back to it at all. None of them look alike.
No, they do not.
It's like they said, hey, you design the costume for this person, you design the costume for this person, and just they gave them an idea. But somehow it all comes together. It's a fun story.
It is a lot of fun.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's one of those where you can sit and lose yourself into the stupidity of it, but it's also so fun just to be there. You're like, okay, it's not world building so much. It's not doing anything incredible, but it's a fun thing. It's just kind of crazy and fun, and like, okay, yeah.
When I saw this on the list on the side, we have a list on the side that tells us, what pictures we have, and I saw this, and it reminded me of one, and I was like, oh, Time Bandits.
That almost got on my list, and we can throw that in there. Time Bandits and Eric the Viking.
Yes. So these they all have in my head, when I think back on my childhood watching them, they all have a similar, they're all in a similar space.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yes,
they all kind of go into that space. And when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, I forgot Ice Pirates even existed. And then it just flooded back to me.
You're welcome.
I love it. I love when we can do that. That's amazing. Oh my goodness. So do you have a favorite part of Ice Pirates?
Boy, it's been so long since I've seen it. I've not seen it in years.
Right.
But as I was going, what are some of those movies that I just loved? Like Ice Pirates. Oh my gosh. Ice Pirates is amazing. So I just need to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
We have a comment here from Jason about Time Bandits. Oh, really? We'd be interested to see what your list is, Jason. That's fascinating. Yeah. So,
Time Bandits
that's the first one listed.
It was such a fun movie. Yeah. And I didn't. It's one of those movies that I think about it, like when it's brought up, or I see something that reminds me of it in that category in my head. Because I don't know if anybody else I've ever told people this. I've told people, but not like, I don't know if I've told it on the show, but how my mind works is like the scene from Bruce Almighty where there's the filing cabinet and goes out. That's how my mind works. So I file things away, and for some reason Ice Pirates and Time Bandits were filed in the same category.
Well, it's that kind of British humor,
yes,
with a fantasy world there with it. So yeah, they're definitely kind of connected.
We have a couple more that's going in, and I think that hopefully some of these we're going to get into ones that I feel are a little bit more well known, or and there's a couple that people love, and there's a couple that people I know hate, and it's fine. It's fine. You're allowed to hate them, but we
exactly don't. Hate them all you want. What do you got for us? What's going to be next?
So let's go with.
There can only be one. Talking about good Queen soundtracks. Here you go.
I know. And I know people didn't really like the TV show as much, but I did.
Well, the TV show was great. The rest of the movies.
Yeah, no, after you
the third movie's not too bad, but the second one,
it's kind of like a hit or miss. I feel like it was like, let's try to take this here, and it didn't go there quite as well. But the idea of the Highlander is
very
really
world building
cool.
Also.
Right, because I'm a history buff, so you get history, but you get sci-fi, and you get like immortal, and you get sword playing and killing and beheading and all the great things that you get with like these barbarian movies, but in a more civilized manner. And just the idea of these immortals and going around throughout history and battling each other and everything, just amazing. I love it. It's also, in my head, one of the other movies that's in my category, in my filing cabinet with this, is the Prince Robin Hood, the Prince of Thieves, with Kevin Costner.
Yes. Yeah.
So totally different, but has that history feel,
right?
Which I love. And Sean Connery, I mean, seriously,
Sean Connery playing a Spaniard in a movie
I know it was weird.
In a movie about a Scottish guy who's played by an American who...
Right? But they pull it off.
Yeah.
Pull it off.
There can only be one. So,
there can only be one.
But I quickening...
I loved the TV series spinoff of that. I loved
the TV series was great. I agree. The 90s TV series was about the only sequel thing that I really pay any attention to. I've gone back and rewatched that. When I'm watching the movies, even though the third one I think was pretty okay, it's just basically the first one. I'm just putting the first one.
Yeah.
The second one, if I want to watch a hot mess.
Yeah, the second one I feel like they were just trying to put too much in, and they were trying to
we're really aliens from another world, and
it
totally
just let them be immortals,
right,
from this world. Just let them do that.
Well, you notice they never went back to that idea. It was kind of like, that was a bad dream he had. But yes, no, Highlander is amazing. The Queen soundtrack,
yes,
incredible.
Again, Queen is my favorite band. So anytime you can get that kind of music in a soundtrack, I'm all about it.
Exactly. Here we are.
Yes.
Born to be kings.
I mean, I just... And part of it subconsciously might be the soundtrack for some of these movies that we picked, you guys.
Soundtracks are a big part.
Difference. Yes, it makes a huge difference.
Yep.
You can have an amazing movie, and if the soundtrack sucks, the movie's not as good. Or vice versa. You can have a mediocre movie, and if you put the right music to it, it is going to make that movie so much better.
Agreed.
So.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed, Jason.
Agreed.
Yes. So let me go with before we get into some of the ones that are more well known.
Right. I know where you're going.
Basically, fans of it love this movie, but it's an odd, crazy, freaking movie that I cannot stop watching when it's on. It's just...
Is it one that if you were flipping through the channels when you used to flip through the channels, you just stop?
Yes. And I end up buying it on Vudu because I'm like, I've just got to own this because I'm tired of watching just half of it because I'm flipping through finding it. And it is The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai.
And I knew this was going to be on your list because we've talked about this, and I know how much you love it. It is kooky.
It is. It's so kooky. But I love it.
I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound weird if you've never seen this. It is like somehow Pee-wee's Playhouse for grown-ups.
Okay.
Do you understand what I mean by that?
Oh, yeah.
The characters are just that kooky.
They are.
But in a way more serious way, but without being serious.
When you've got the main character who is a brain surgeon, an uber scientist for space scientist, and a lead singer of a band, and has his own comic book.
Right.
And he's got followers everywhere.
It's like they threw together every weirdo ever into one character.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then Cowboy. Oh my gosh. Totally zoning it, but oh my gosh, this movie is so crazy out there, and the fact that you've got aliens from and interdimension and aliens from outer space that are different aliens in this movie. And it's just nuts.
But you listen to us describing it, and if you've never seen it, you're probably going, well, that sounds like a hot mess. And it is. It is. And you think to yourself, there's no way that any of the story could be cohesive. But somehow it threads together in a way that you're like, what? No. What?
Yeah.
How? What? And you question your sanity watching this movie.
You do. You do.
You like, do.
Who was high when they created this, right?
Exactly.
It's so amazing.
Again, the characters, like the supporting characters, you know.
So we've got Peter Weller as Buckaroo Banzai. You got John Lithgow as the main bad guy in it.
Yes.
Well, Goldblum as New Jersey, the cowboy guy. You've got Christopher Lloyd in this movie.
Some heavy hitters that
Clancy
weren't heavy
Grant
hitters.
is in it. Yeah, it's big heavy hitters. It's a tremendous movie. It's so fun.
I mean,
the acting's not spectacular, but it's so fun.
And that's the thing. A lot of people are probably going to be watching this, and hopefully we have lots and hundreds of people watching this at least. And they're going to be like, I don't understand how they get this list. These lists are curated by what we like or what we remember or what we find fun. And we do sometimes make lists that are very serious, like lists of things that we like that are more serious kind of movies. But when you're talking fantasy, sci-fi 80s, you're gonna have these weird, confusing, I don't know what I just watched, but I kind of want to watch it again kind of movies.
Yes.
And that's what that one is for you, Professor, right?
It is.
What did I just watch?
I just smile when I watch it every time now. I'm just like,
and
this is so bizarre, but still, after all these years, it's still just bizarre. But I love it.
It's got that Monty Python, like, I have no idea what I'm watching.
Yes.
But it's not written like a Monty Python.
It's not. It's not slapstick humor.
No.
There's some humor to it.
But it's kind of smart humor.
It is. It's very smart humor.
But it's
very
done
much
in
an
a stupid way.
Right.
It's smart humor done in a stupid way.
Right.
But it has that feel of like you watch it and you're like, I don't know what I just watched. Monty Python, the first time I ever watched Monty Python, it was the same kind of feel. I loved it, but I couldn't explain why I loved it.
Right.
Because I was like, what the hell did I just watch? I almost said the F word, but I only get one per episode.
And I used your one.
I know you did. I don't think I didn't catch that. I caught that. No, that's a good pick because it's one of those shows that if you love it, you love it.
Right.
It is a very hit or miss. Like people either love it or they hate it.
Right.
Or they've never seen it.
The essence of cult classic. That's really what this is. It's 100% a cult classic. People love it or hate it, but it's what it is. It has a following. You have diehard fans, people who love it even more than me, and I love this.
Oh yeah, no, there are people who are. It's kind of the Rocky Horror Picture Show is the ultimate. Yeah. When I talk about cult classics, it is the ultimate cult classic movie. It has people who love it to the point of no return, and then there are people who are like, I'm one of those people who love it because I love crazy.
Right. Well, okay, here's a cosplay idea. I want to go to New Jersey.
Oh my God. Do it. Do it. That would be amazing. I'm not going to lie. That would be amazing.
The whole wool pants.
We only have a couple more.
Well, we're getting down there, aren't we?
We're getting down there. Okay, so again, I'm going to go with one that is a spoof of probably the most famous nerdy movie ever.
Yep.
But you can't. you can't not put this on there. Spaceballs.
Spaceballs. The movie.
The movie.
Merchandising.
The way it breaks the fourth wall, priceless.
Yep.
The way it mocks, but yet you're interested enough in the story, even though you know what the story, how the story goes, because you've seen Star Wars.
Right.
The characters are changed enough to make them, you go, oh my God, what am I watching? This is hilarious.
Yep. John Candy as Mog, the half man, half dog. I'm my own best friend. My name's Barf. Not in here, you don't. It's a Mercedes.
Barf was. I mean, I love John Candy. In that role was probably, in my mind, one of his most iconic, because I feel like they said you're going to be this dog human. That's kind of like a spoof of Chewbacca, but we want you to talk and be stupid as you can be, and he just went for it.
He did.
And it's so good. And here's the thing: sometimes you watch movies. I love a serious movie. I love a good drama, but sometimes you just want to laugh your butt off.
Right.
And this is the kind of movie you just laugh, and you're going, yeah, this is fun.
Joan Rivers as, I forget her name, but as the android.
Yeah.
You have, and here's something that I had heard and confirmed a while back. So the main character, when they approached George Lucas about making this movie, and of course he's like, oh yeah, of course you can, Mel Brooks, of course, spoof my movie, whatever. It's like, just, do me a favor, don't make the main character look like Han Solo. So he's like, okay, so he made him look like Indiana Jones.
I know, which is perfect. It's so perfect, and that's kind of the brilliance of it, because it makes fun of stuff. And let me just say, one of my favorites from this movie is Rick Moranis.
Yes.
He's one of those actors that Dot. Her name is Dot.
Yep, not Matrix. Yep.
Rick is one of those actors that I just love what he does with roles, and he just did such a good job with this. And it came out at a time that you're like, it was the perfect timing to spoof it. If they would have tried to do it earlier, it would not have worked, I don't think. But it was the perfect time to do it, because people already loved it so much, and it was already so iconic that making fun of it was good. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the times, if you try to do it too soon of a movie that's well loved, like Star Wars is, you can kind of hurt yourself because so many people love it. They waited long enough, and they twisted it in such a way that it just made sense. And I think it's funny, and I just love the breaking of the fourth wall. I think it gives it a unique twist.
You have, along with Star Wars being your main one, they do spoof aliens in it with a little dancing alien across the countertop. You have Planet of the Apes spoofed in there. You have Transformers spoofed in there, and all sorts of other sci-fi movies. And the whole idea that just plain yogurt, that goes by yogurt.
Oh my God.
Yoda, and merchandising. It's all about the merchandising. And so, my favorite scene, and I'll make an exception, and we'll use another curse word here. But my favorite scene is when he's standing on the bridge, and he goes, "And who are you?" I'm I'm a private asshole, sir. Assholes. How many other assholes do we have here? And everybody raises their hands. I knew it. Surrounded by assholes.
They're all related. It's fine. But it's true. It's so funny. And yes, you're right. Like, it was billed, and most people know it as a Star Wars spoof, but it does have other ones in there. But the characters, the main characters, are definitely spoofs.
Oh, most definitely. 100%.
But I just think that they did it in a really nice way. They didn't like make fun of it in a way that's like diminishing Star Wars.
Right.
It was just kind of like, but what if? It was the Marvel's what if for Star Wars.
Definitely.
I'm a nerdy girl. What can I say? This is literally where my mind goes. It's like, oh yeah, it's like what if for. Yeah. Oh, so, Professor.
Where are we now? We're here.
but
what will we be then? Soon. Yeah.
I gotta watch that now. I have it on DVD. I'm gonna watch it. I swear. Love that movie.
Yeah.
Oh my
Agreed
God.
there, Jason. Yeah. The brilliance of Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks was a super genius.
Yeah.
There. So yeah, no, I agree that is a great one, 100%. I'm gonna go with one here that you put on the list, which I didn't take it as a cult classic, but I kind of get it. But it is actually literally my favorite movie of all times. Literally my favorite movie. It was actually my first date with my wife, and this movie is just like a perfect movie because it has comedy and action and romance and Death by Pirates
and a giant
and giants. Yes, giants.
So I did put this on there, and I understand, like, it's a very well-known movie, and it's very, very much not necessarily cult classic. However, when you told me to pick 80s sci-fi or fantasy,
yep,
there was no way I was going to make a list without this movie.
Right.
Because to me, it is one of the best movies ever made.
Yes.
It does not take itself serious. But it has serious moments, and it has serious undertones, like revenge and, love and all of this stuff, and warmongering, and just it. But it had to be on this list because of the fact of what it is. And when you say 80s fantasy movies,
no, I agree. It's hard to leave it off the list. I just was like, I saw it on there. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine because it's my favorite movie. So it's basically just right above Star Wars and Batman 1989. That's really, those are my trifecta there of my favorite movies. So yeah.
And the thing about this movie is The Princess Bride is, like you said, it has everything. It has espionage. It has giants and sword fights and love and revenge and, basically anything you could. Miracles, by the way, Miracle Max, Billy Crystal, and his wife, Carol Kane, hilarious. And it has comedy, but the blending of it is so beautiful.
Yes, it is.
And it's almost seamless. And you can go from a scene where you have a traumatic childhood experience, and then a sword fight, and then they're talking, but they're fighting, and they're bonding, but they're fighting, and the banter and the wit that the screenplay gave.
Yes.
And I can't imagine anyone playing any of these roles other than the people who played them.
Exactly.
And I think that shows a true mastery of casting Could other people have played these roles? Yes. But now that we have this, in my mind, I can't think, and I can recast movies all day long. My husband and I play a game where we'll watch a movie and we'll be like, who would be better in this role? This is one of those movies I can't personally think of anyone who would be better in any of the roles.
Nope. It's perfect as it is. Leave it alone.
Yeah. And again, I'm a wrestling girl. You have Andre the Giant, who was, I don't met him. I met Andre the Giant as a kid.
Wow.
Probably scariest man I ever met when I first met him, but sweetest man when you talk to him.
Right.
Ever. When people say he was a gentle giant, he was a gentle giant. Yeah, no, I actually went backstage at a couple wrestling things as a kid, and I got to meet him.
That's
and
awesome.
Not for a long time, but but he was always kind to us. Anybody who was back there, and seeing him on the big screen playing personally somebody who I think fit him, his real life persona, his real life who he was, way better than anything he ever did in wrestling, was a beautiful thing. I know Billy Crystal, he made, a documentary about it, and he because of the effect that he had on it. And that is what the truth of who he was brought onto the screen. And I think all the actors in this brought such truth to the roles that it's just one of those movies that I cannot find fault with.
Right.
And you know me, I'm a critic at heart, so.
Yeah, this movie is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
There's a story that they tell about Andre being on set and having gas and letting out this 10-second long fart that's super loud, and then everybody just is silent. And then the director looks in and goes, "Andre, you all right?" "I am now, boss."
Yep.
"All right, let's get back to it."
Yeah. It's he was really known for that. They used to make fun of it in the back. I wasn't even there very often. I was only there 2 or 3 times. But I know I've heard people make jokes about Andre the Giant's farts. Apparently they were horrible.
Yep. So Jason had a comment here, and this is a great line. Yeah, rodents of unusual size, I don't think they exist. Right as he's attacked by one. Yeah. I watch this movie 3 or 4 times a year. I just love this movie. Yeah. It's such an amazing movie.
And it has something for every age.
It does.
You can be a teenage boy and find something you like out of it. You can be a teenage girl and find something you like out of it. You can be 4 years old and find something you like out of it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those movies you can watch no matter your age. There's nothing that you wouldn't want your child to see.
Right. Exactly.
The rodents of unusual size did scare my sister a little bit when we were growing up.
A big freaking rat jumps on you and bites your shoulder.
And they scare me now because I'm scared to death of mice, but that's because I was attacked by them. It's fine. But no, I couldn't not put that movie on.
Oh sure.
Also, I knew it was one of your favorites. I didn't know it was your favorite, but I knew it was high up there.
It's my top favorite movie. It's been there. I saw it in the theater with a buddy of mine, and then like I said, they were going to show it at the Student Union, and that was my first date with my wife, was going to Student Union. So yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And she still dated me afterwards. I don't know. So there you go.
Well, that kind of shows it's a good movie for a date.
It definitely is.
Yeah,
again, it has something for everybody. So.
Okay, so let's see here. Do we only have 2 more left?
That's all I see. We can always add more. But,
so the next 2 also are not what I call cult classics. in that they have a huge following. However, when you talk about sci-fi and fantasy, these are both more sci-fi. But you talk about 80s sci-fi, you kind of have to put them on the list. And I know people are going to watch this and be like, but they're not really cult classics. But we kind of, I think, filled out our list of our favorite cult classics.
We did.
But when you said 80s sci-fi fantasy, again, Princess Bride had to be on there, and these two also had to be on there just because they are so iconic.
Agreed.
Back to the Future.
I love this movie. This is so fun.
My husband will argue, we just talked about how The Princess Bride is pretty flawless of a movie. My husband will argue with you that Back to the Future is the same.
I don't disagree with that.
It's pretty flawless of a movie. It's there's a couple things that, if you really want to get scientifically nitpicky about, but they're not enough to dissuade from the movie itself. The actors were perfectly cast.
They were.
The set was amazing, and it transitioned from, modern day, or the 80s modern day to his parents' day.
In a way, the 80s aren't still modern day?
No, not apparently not. But it transitioned to where it was, you recognized it enough, and you were like, this is what a small town, how it transitions.
Exactly.
And it all made sense. It all made sense in a beautiful way. Marty McFly, you can't say that name and not go, yes, that's amazing.
Yeah, yep.
So I kind of had to put this one on there as well, just because of how amazing the movie is. And again, not necessarily cult classic. I did know that, Jason. Also, did you know that he was still doing Family Ties at the time? Michael J. Fox was still doing Family Ties. And so he could only be filmed at night because he was doing Family Ties during the day. And so a lot of the scenes you have in the square where it's daytime out, it's artificially daytime out. Like, they put so many lights to make it daytime because he wanted to do this so much. Like, his people in his life were like, you can't do that. And he believed in this so much that he was like, I want to do it. And so that also shows how good of a movie is, because he was on a successful TV show.
Right.
Family Ties was a successful TV show. And he didn't need to transition to movies.
Right.
Like, he didn't. But thank God he did, because I really think that he was the perfect cast for this.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, I loved it. And I was like, we got to have it on there, just because I can't imagine a sci-fi 80s list without it on there.
I agree. Okay. Got a couple things to say. Doc, you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
I know. The DeLorean. Talk about the perfect cast, right?
Right.
A lot of times when we think of cast, we think of, like, people, because they're the ones acting. But having the right prop can make a movie. I say this about cosplayers all the time. The props make the cosplay.
Right.
If you have the right prop to your cosplay, even if your outfit is like substandard or store bought, but you can create a prop to go with it, it can change it completely. The DeLorean was the most amazing prop ever for a movie.
Right.
Ever. It's the most iconic prop I can think of.
Yeah.
And it was a real car, But just that the doors opening like this, just that.
Exactly.
Created, like, as soon as you saw the car and you saw the doors open like that, you knew this was going to be like a movie that was going to be like gobsmacking you.
Well, and the fact that you use that later when he goes back to the 50s and comes out of the barn, the doors do that. And the kid's reading the sci-fi magazine with the aliens with
Alien
it.
in the door. Yeah.
Which is awesome.
It was such a great prop to have in a film, and it's iconically, like, the DeLorean was not a great car.
Right. Horrible car.
As
right.
a car.
Always broken down, yeah.
Yeah. But when you think of that car, you will always think of this movie.
You just need some gigawatts. Gigawatts. Just need some gigawatts. So
it's such a good movie.
The other line I'd like to point out is done by an actor that people might know for his musical career, Huey Lewis, saying, "I'm sorry, you're just too darn loud." I'm like, and they're doing his song, which I thought was the funniest thing ever. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Huey Lewis telling them they're being too loud. That's awesome.
Which is great. I will say, the movie creeps me out a little bit on one aspect, and it's the fact that his mom is flirting with him. and as a mom, I know she's not his mom yet in her timeline, but yeah, that's a little creepy.
Well, once she kisses him, she realizes she's wrong.
Oh yeah, it's something in her is like, like it's not meant to be like that. But yeah, other than that, but it's a fun premise.
Yes, it is.
And here's the thing: they did other movies. They did 2 and 3,
which were good movies.
They're good movies. They're not as good. I think the first one, the script is much better with the first one.
Yeah.
But I don't hate the others, and a lot of the times, they fall flat. We talked about Beastmaster falling way down with the second one. It was still a fun movie, but it was way down. These, I would watch the trilogy all day long.
Yep. I own the trilogy, because of that whole reason. Yeah, because I'm like, so I had to sit down and show these to my kids. Even my kids who don't like 80s culture, who don't like a lot of things, if Dad's going to make me watch it, both of them went, oh, okay. So they were into it. And I'm like, all right, that's what I like to see. So yeah, most definitely. Well, give us your other one that's also a big hit of the 80s, because who are you going to call?
Again, you can't go to this category without mentioning the Ghostbusters.
Right.
Iconic is not even the word for this movie. It has spawned so much: songs, cartoons, toys, a whole new generation learning about them through new movies, and it was just so much fun. And as somebody who's very into the paranormal, and the whole idea of ghosts exist, this took it to this incredibly stupid and completely outrageous place. Sigourney Weaver, known for Alien, which could fit into this category too. And listen, we might do one that's not cult classics and just straight sci-fi fantasy kind of thing. And Alien would fit into that, horror sci-fi. Her in this, though, showed her comedy chops.
It did.
So much. Rick Moranis, again, I told you I love him. I think that he's probably one of those actors that people don't give enough credit to. And what an amazing legacy Ghostbusters has been and is continuing to be. So.
Right on.
So I had to put it on there, guys. Sorry.
Well, we didn't want to cross the streams. It had to be on there.
Right? All right, and let's face it, Stay Puft and Slimer.
Right. I didn't think of anything. Did you think of anything? Ray, did you think of anything?
I know.
Just the most innocent thing possible. Couldn't hurt you if it tried. Just Stay
Puft
Marshmallow Man.
And it has continued in making movies with this world that makes sense in a weird way. And you know, the new movies coming out, it's just one of those things that I just couldn't not put it on the list. And I knew it was going to be the last three, Princess Bride and Back to the Future, and I knew they were going to be the last ones we talked about because they're not necessarily cult classics, but
right.
They're movies I love, people. They're movies I love.
So if you had to suggest one of these, not being the last three, one of these for people to watch that haven't seen it, what are you telling them to go check out? Which one? Are you saying, okay, so if you're going to go cult classic, go this one?
Okay. And they've never seen any of these?
Never seen any of them.
Oh my gosh. So cult classics. So I'm not going to pick the last three because I feel like most people have seen those or at least heard about those. Oh, God. That's a hard one, Professor.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you for a loop there. Well, Jason, we'd love to see your list because I do like Darker also. There were certain things I did not count as cult classics that I could have put on there that were a little darker, but if I'm going to do that, and there's so many great ones here, but I'm going to go with Buckaroo Banzai. I'm going to blow your freaking mind.
You're going to just make everybody go, what the hell did he just have me watch?
There's your word.
I'm actually probably going to pick one off of your list.
Oh, okay.
Because it actually almost made my list, but I knew you loved it. Here's Jason's. So, Jason, I love all of these. I'm going to tell you why that I didn't put them on my list is because they weren't necessarily what I call cult classics because they were kind of bigger. Dreamscape is one that came close.
Yes,
because
Dreamscape was on my list there too. Yeah,
and Starman
was also. I thought about Time Bandits and Eric the Viking, but I didn't get either one of those put on.
Yeah. The only reason the last three made it is just because they're so iconic in that thing. But I love every single one of the ones that you have on your list.
I'm not sure I know what Brainstorm is. That one I don't know. I know the rest of them though. So yeah.
Okay, so This is the one you're going to tell people to watch.
Yeah, I'm telling people go watch this one because you have to understand it's 80s cult classic, and I want you to think about it.
Okay.
And then go, that's bizarre, but I kind of like it.
So I'm going to pick two, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to pick one for adults that I think that they will get, and it would be funny. And it's this one.
Come get some.
Yes. Not that kids can't watch it, because kids can watch it. I watched it as a kid. However, I have a better one for kids that if you have kids to see. There you go. He's talking about
okay.
Brainstorm.
Well, and I love Natalie Wood, so
and Christopher Walken.
Yeah. I don't know. I've seen that one. I need to go check it out because Natalie Wood was got taken way too early from us. So.
I agree. So They Live is definitely a cult classic.
I love that movie. Yeah.
And it's funny and it's action and you're gonna watch it and be like, this reminds me of this movie and this reminds me of this movie, and it's going to remind you of a lot of things. So I would pick that for the adults, and if you're going to do one for kids, I personally...
You're going to Explorers. Okay, yeah.
Explorers.
Yeah.
It's super fun, and it's super cheeky, and it's just hilarious, but at the same time, it gives it does do something which I like as a parent and as a homeschool parent, that I like, because it gets kids thinking about science and space exploration, without going, here's education. None of it is educational. You can't really build a time machine or a space machine that way, a space shuttle that way, but it gets you thinking about like other things. And it's cute, but Dark Crystal almost made that one.
And that's a good one for kids too.
Yeah, Labyrinth. Like, there's so many.
Right. Well,
so here's my suggestion: you go watch all of them.
That's a good idea, Jason. Dark Crystal's pretty dark, dude. So
no, Dark Crystal's very dark. But, you know, some of the ones we picked, we had some dark ones, but not a lot. And I think in my mind, somehow, when I think cult classics, I tend to think of more like unusual.
Yeah.
And I think of ones that are like, what did I just watch? And then you watch it again and you fall in love with it the second time. First time you're just like, what did I watch? But no, this was a fun list.
Yeah, I thought you would have fun with this. We didn't have to think too hard, and we can just like, let's talk about some movies, but let's talk about different movies, kind of odd movies.
Yeah. You know, we did the decades, like half a decade, half a decade, half a decade.
We just need to get back to that.
Yeah. When we talked about doing the 80s, though, we did have a problem where we thought we can't do a half a decade. No. We would have to do 80, 81, 82, 83. Because we grew up in the 80s. And so...
The movies were just awesome then.
Yeah. It's because my son will tell you that the movies in the 90s were awesome because they're what he grew up with. And that's the thing, the nostalgia of it is just, these are my movies, you know. Other movies that could be added to this list if it wasn't cult classics. E.T.
Yep. Well, even cult classic, My Science Project, Weird Science.
Weird Science almost made my list. It's on my secondary.
Yeah. So those are some.
They build a person out of a Barbie doll.
Exactly.
And balls on their heads.
And then the movie has no nudity.
It's just crazy. No, there's so many. There's so many.
There's a lot of good ones out there.
My favorite part of Weird Science, though, is Chet.
You're not wrong. He's such a jerk.
And then I just love that she like turns him into Jabba the Hutt.
Exactly.
This is perfect. My puppy here is telling me I need to take her for a walk.
All right. Well, and we are almost at 2 hours, so we probably need to wrap up anyway. Let your puppy go and let my voice rest.
Yes.
It's still kind of waning.
Right. Yep. Well, we have other friends who do kind of the same thing as us, a little bit different. We always throw some like things out there. We're going to do it really fast today so that I can get her because she's begging to go out. We have the Ozpod Gals over on Facebook. They're part of OzCon, which is one of our favorite cons. Check them out. They're going to have videos every once in a while. They're really busy with OzCon stuff, so not as normal routine and schedule as some of our other friends. We have wrong one. We have the Nerd Informants. Wait, what? Yeah, I was on the right one. Nerd Informants on YouTube and Facebook. They're this distinguished competition. Tim and Josh, they do all things nerdy and cover all kinds of movies and video games, and they keep you up to date on their Facebook page with all kinds of nerd news, just like we do over at GeekyKOOL.com. They have a Facebook page where you can post your stuff and what you want to see, and if you have questions, if you find a cool meme, whatever you want to post, as long as you're friendly to everybody else, they are good with you posting on Nerd Informants Beyond. We have our friends Keith and Gary over at Pop Culture Minefield on YouTube. Have too many shows. I can't list them. Yep, they change them all the time. But you're going to find all kinds of news and all kinds of scoop. And they just know everything that's going on in Hollywood and in pop culture. So Be sure to check them out. Then we have our partner, my life partner, the Scallywag himself, over at Scallywags Productions, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, much more. He posts the collectible of the day. Everything you see behind me, plus some stuff in our other rooms, are all toys that he collects or I collect. And we have currently, I think, 3,000 toys. This was my studio, and now it's his playroom. So he posts that every day. But we're hoping to get something going, but we've been saying that for a while. We apologize, but they do have he has a lot of shows on there and playlists that you guys can look and see all kinds of cool things. And then there's us, GeekyKOOL.com. We have our own website. We're on Facebook, Twitter. You're watching us on either YouTube or Facebook right now. We're also on podcasts, so anywhere you can find your favorite podcast, find GeekyKOOL.com, and you can listen to us if you can't watch us. We have amazing contributors. So we are part of the podcast, Professor and I. But if you go to GeekyKOOL.com, you will see contributors from all over the country, nerdy people who are expressing their nerdy opinions and their geeky selves and their list, and movie reviews and con reviews and everything else. And if you want to be a contributor, let one of us know.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah. Did I do
it? That's awesome. Way to go. You did that very quickly. That was great, AJ. All right, guys. We're doing our best to make sure we get back to doing this every week. Next week, we've got a special guest of Morgan with us, along with her two voice actors are going to be joining us.
Morgan is one of our contributors, and she's also an author.
She is, and one of her books is being made into an audiobook. Tune in next week to learn more about that and what you can do to get a copy of the audiobook and help get it going for her. So tune in, and I'm looking forward to meeting Lex and forgetting his name. I apologize. Oh my goodness.
She has nothing but good things to say about them, and I'm so excited. They did such a good job with her other audiobooks.
They did, and they do her characters so well. Yes. So well. So anyway, tune in next week for that. It should be on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Central Time. So adjust that accordingly from where you're listening. And we will talk to you then. Until then, stay geeky.
And be kind to each other.
Be kind to each other. Yes. That's important.
It is.